I got a couple scriptures here, but some of it I'm going to summarize. I'm going to do one of those Stephen things. Stephen things?
You get stoned?
No. Prior to that, he summarizes.
Planning to die here today?
Well, depends on how you mean that. I die daily. Didn't Paul say that? Amen. Mark 14 says, and we'll spin this off just a little bit differently. But Mark 14:7, Jesus, the woman came in and just anointed him with oil, and it caused a little bit of ruckus with the disciples because they said that money that could have been sold and fed the poor. So this is the context of that statement. I'm going to use it a little bit differently, but 14:7 says, "For you have the poor with you always." Now, is that true today? Do we always have the poor with? Yep. And it said, whenever you wish, you may do them good. Not homeless, people on the side of the street begging. But me, you do not have always. And that's Jesus speaking. But the where I want to go with this today is, what type of life do you live? What are the choices? How is your life today? The poor you have for you have the poor with you always. Take it a little bit different. That's not strictly monetary, okay? The poor you have with you always. Jerry as a preacher, or preachers as a whole, or pastors as a whole, they're constantly discipling people. But for your specific life, you want to take a look at it and say, what type of life are you living? Are you living your life miracle to miracle? Would you like to live your life miracle to miracle? Don't answer. Don't answer. You see, we have a choice. In Deuteronomy it says that the Lord's blessing is upon us. You've given your life to Him. You've made the choice to serve God and love God. But the poor you have with you always. In church, as far as our experience, are we poor? In the sense of, are we growing? Are we maturing in God? You see, we can live miracle to miracle, but that's not the that's not the will of God for you. The will of God for you is to live in the blessing of God. Miracle to miracle works fine. As you're a child, you grow, God blesses you. I mean, in the sense that, you get in a situation, you get in a quote-unquote crisis situation, and yes, God, you call out to God, you believe God, and He gives you a miracle. Jerry, a while back, maybe it was last year, preached a message about those that are there just for the miracles. And those, there was a progression in his message, but are you here just for the miracles? Jesus said, well, they're just here for the miracles. You see, do we just live life for the miracles? There's a better way to live. In other words, we're in a crisis, and we as children, we should call out to the Father. Amen? A Father in heaven. We should look to God to bless us. That's not what I'm saying. There's a greater way to live your life. There's a greater purpose in your life. There's a greater place that we need to be walking as Christians, and that is in the blessing of God. Children live from miracle to miracle. Adults live in the blessing of God. Mature Christians live in the blessing of God. Does that mean that, are you saying that everything is without any kind of crisis? No, there is testing, there is times of trial, there is times of growth. But living miracle to miracle, it means that I'm living my life on this plane, and God wants me to move up to this plane, grow up. Yet we bump along this bottom plane here, barely surviving and living from miracle to miracle. Is there anything wrong with miracles? No. But if you're depending on that, if you're not growing in God, if you're not maturing in God, you see, God has a greater place that He wants you to take you. Living from miracle to miracle is not the will of God for us. Living in the blessing of God, that is the will of God. That is that place He wants us to get to. Miracles are great. I love miracles. I believe for miracles. I pray for people for miracles. That's not the point. The point is, if you're living miracle to miracle and you have you have this big dip. Okay, you get a miracle, and then your life kind of goes back down here. And then, okay, I need a miracle to get back up here and get moving again. You see, God doesn't intend us to live there. Yeah, we get in situations in our life. But you see, God wants us to live in His blessing every day, to move with it, to make decisions according. You can look at Abraham in the Old Testament. Abraham, God called to him, God spoke to him, said, get up and leave the land, go to this place. Abraham had a choice, didn't he, to make? He could leave the land and move, go to where God called him to go to, or he could stay in that place. Would have God taken care of him? To some degree. He could have lived there and lived from miracle to miracle. But God said, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make your seed as the sands of the sea. Wouldn't you rather live there? You see, Abraham lived a different type of life. He had to commit all. He had to walk in the blessing of God. He had to follow the direction of God in his life. What are you saying? Are you saying, because I'm living miracle to miracle, that I'm not living in the blessing of God? Well, I'm saying there is a higher purpose. There is a higher plan than living miracle to miracle, and that's living in the blessing of God. Abraham moved. Abraham had the choice. Many times the blessing of God was, I'll say, tested in Abraham's life. And many times he tested it. But the thing is, Abraham always made decisions based on the blessing of God being there. He got up out of the Ur of Chaldees and moved because God said, go, move, go here. He had the opportunity between him and Lot. The land was before both of them, and he could have making the first choice, but he gave the first choice to Lot. That seems strange, doesn't it? Not if you have confidence in the blessing of God. Not if you know that God's going to bless. What does Deuteronomy say? He's going to bless everything that you put your hands to. He's going to bless wherever your feet walk. That's living in the blessing of God. You see, we do things sometimes to get ourselves out of a crisis situation. We'll believe, and there's nothing wrong. You should believe whatever situation. So don't get me wrong. I'm not putting miracles down, but I'm putting them down. I want you to see that there is a spiritual growth. There is a greater place that you can live than where you're living now, and that's in the blessing of God. Does God do miracles? Amen, He does. Should we believe for Him? Sure we do. Jerry as pastor or as ministry, we have the poor with us always, don't we, Jerry? And I'm not saying that I am any better than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the choices that you make take you on a path to where you grow in the blessing of God, but it parallels your spiritual growth. Walking in the blessing of God, the amount of blessing that you're able to handle, God's able to trust you with, it grows in parallel with your growth spiritually. It says in Galatians that you're under tutors, governors and tutors until you grow up. I'll move on. But there was Abraham had a chance. Abraham really tested the blessing of God in his life. But he always made the choice, knowing he always had this underlying faith, this grounding, this firm foundation that the blessing of God was on him. And no matter what he did, in the sense that he always put God first in those choices, let me say it that way, so that he maintained and he followed in. He kept himself in a position to receive the blessing of God, to walk in the blessing of God. Abraham gave Lot the first right to choose. Lot chose the best land. You say Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, that's after the fact. Before, it was a very nice, blessed land. Abraham, what was left was the desert country. But guess what? God took and blessed Abraham. Abraham gave Lot the first choice. Lot went there. Abraham chose this over here. He took what was left, and God blessed him with what was left. Why? Because Abraham believed in the blessing of the Lord. The Lord had blessed him. The Lord had called him. The Lord was moving him here and there. Lot, on the other hand, he lived miracle to miracle, didn't he? And actually, it was the faith of Abraham that produced the miracle that got him out of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Lot is an example of living miracle to miracle. Abraham is an example of walking and living in the blessing of the Lord. Amen? He preferred his brother before himself. He said, go ahead and make choice. It doesn't make any difference where you choose. Whatever is left, wherever I go, God is going to bless me. And God did bless him. He had that underlying faith and confidence. That's why when we make choices in our life, if we put God first in our choices, knowing that we are blessed, that his blessing is upon my life, that it's all going to turn out all right. You put him first and the blessing of God will be there. Amen? You can go through, there's many other examples in the Old Testament. You can look at Isaac. He went to a different land. He went to Laban. He chose Rebekah, didn't he? What did he end up getting? Leah. Well, it was a rude awakening. But he believed in the blessing of God on his life. And also from God's side of the whole thing, that we knew that God was setting up the lineage of who? Jesus, right? So, but nevertheless, why didn't Isaac just go take her? He did labor for, another 7 years. He believed in the promise and the blessing of God. Did he know that? I don't know exactly what he knew about Rebekah, all that. He probably didn't have a clue. How many times, I can look back over my life and say, how many times the choices I make, sometimes I didn't realize the ramification, but God knew. Amen. But from your perspective, from our perspective, we just have to put God first in that choice. Amen. Choose the best, but choose God. Choose the best choice, but always choose God first. Amen. So he labored for her in 7 years. He got Rebekah. But even in that, God blessed him. And you can go and look in, with these patriarchs, the Old Testament characters, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And there's Jacob. Here's another example in the Old Testament of, many people say he stole the birthright. Well, from a natural standpoint, you could say, yes, he did. But the birthright was his by decree of God. Right. So, from natural standpoint, people just, they put him in a bad light. But within him, it was the blessing of God. The blessing, according to the natural, was supposed to go to the oldest one, which was Esau. But on the same token, Esau also sold his birthright for a little bowl of soup. So there you go. You have it hand in hand. Both things are right there together. Esau made his choice and got what he wanted, right? Did not? Yes, he did. Did he put God first? Did he put the blessing of God first? No, he put his own belly, his own present need. That's living miracle to miracle, isn't it? Yeah. But you see, Jacob lived in the blessing of God. He got the blessing. He got the blessing, but it was because God decreed him to get the blessing. Then you can go on and look at the other ones, all the different things that happened in the Old Testament with these Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and how the Lord just blessed them. I mean, you pass a rod over a sheep and it turns, striped. Because you were promised all the striped ones, or spotted, whatever it was, spotted, I guess. Stripes doesn't sound right with a sheep, but... But that's the blessing of God, you see. They believed in the blessing of God. And because they believed in the blessing of God, when it came to making a choice, they could put God first because they believed in the blessing of God.